Good. Well, Tom, good morning or good afternoon for both of us,
That's
and thanks
right.
for the opportunity to interview you today.
It's my
I
pleasure.
sent you through a few questions in advance. Were you okay with those?
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Sounds good.
Okay. So there are seven. The first of those is what actually inspired you to take up photography in the first instance?
It was funny because I did it in high school, just as a class, and then in college I had a work study job, and really it was just a way for me to make money. I don't think that there was any long term desire to become a photographer or do anything related to photography. Really, at the time in college, it was just a way for me to make some spare money, and so it started off as probably like a hobby. Um,
Hmm.
then, as I went through college and started to think about my future and think about what I wanted to do, I took a year off after I graduated and found out I was marketable in the photography world and started getting some jobs and thought a little bit harder about that being a career and I eventually went all out as a photographer and here I am 25 years later still doing it.
And what sort of photographs did you start taking?
I was primarily a photojournalist, doing a lot
Mhm.
of magazine stuff and a lot of sports work. And in
Mm.
fact, really, I would say the first 15 years of my life, I was heavily involved in sports photography. I don't know
Mm.
if you're familiar with the NFL here, is our
Yeah,
pro
sure,
football
sure.
league, but worked as a photographer for a team here in Buffalo for about 15
Yeah.
years, and really that's when I picked it up as a career and became actively involved in it.
Mm. And did you get a chance to go to see the Bills themselves?
Yeah, that was the team that I shot for. I was their team
Yeah.
photographer, and
Oh, were you?
and I spent some really great years when they were winning, and some really miserable years when they were losing. So
Are you from there
yeah,
originally?
yeah, I'm originally from Buffalo.
That's your hometown. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have been there.
you have. That's
Yeah,
awesome. What did you like about
yeah,
it?
yeah. It's great. It was part of a little tour I was doing. My
Okay,
wife and I went
okay,
there and had a look around. I'm trying to think when that was. Probably 10 years ago or
okay.
more.
Did you get up to see the
Something.
falls?
Sorry, say it again.
Did you get up to see Niagara Falls?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, great,
We did,
good.
which is fantastic, and it was quite a nice day. There's a little bit of mist to it, but I think it's better when it's like that in
Yeah,
some ways.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
So that was good. So you're in sports. And where did what really inspired you from there then? Because you'd obviously done some photojournalism work,
Yeah,
you've done
yeah,
sport.
yeah. It was
Where did you go
interesting.
next?
Because of that affiliation, I had gotten a job as an adjunct teaching photojournalism at a college. So
Okay.
that was really kind of the big turning point. The more I started teaching photography and becoming involved in students, I think I became more involved in other genres of photography. And I also found that I needed to have a better understanding of the history of the medium so that I
Hmm.
could teach it to the students. So really, that was sort of the turning point that shifted me from purely a sports photographer that was kind of point and shoot photography to
Hmm.
more concept driven photography.
Hmm. And has it changed what you'd like to get out of achieving pictures? Oh, sorry, is it changed what you'd like to achieve
Yeah,
out of taking pictures?
yeah, absolutely. I think originally there was the monetary incentive. I love to sell photos, and I saw that as a
Hmm.
way to make money. Now I really view photography certainly as something that I like to make money with, but also something that I enjoy the ability to have personal expression with it.
Hmm.
So, this is something I enjoy creating. It's something that is almost like a meditative act for me, being in the dark
Hmm.
room and processing these photos and doing that because really the other half of my photographic life is very photojournalism, commercial photography, and very a lot going on, and it's they're not quiet things and they're not
Hmm.
introspective, and so the photography that I'm doing for my thesis project very much is quiet, introspective. I can kind of sort of self-analyze my life and my situation, and I think that really brings me the most enjoyment when we talk about photography.
And when you moved from photojournalism and sports to the more introspective personal work, did you move from digital to film, or were you already shooting with film when you were undertaking the photojournalism and sports work?
Well, it's interesting. I still primarily shoot digital. The work
Hmm.
that you're seeing in our class is created digitally, and then I'm
Hmm.
making digital negatives, and
Okay.
then I'm
Yeah.
processing that in the darkroom. So
Mm.
what I kind of love about it is it takes the very modern methods of capture and morphs
Mm.
them with sort of more of our old traditional ways of doing things in the darkroom. So
Mm.
I think it kind of combines the best of both worlds.
Mm. That's very nicely put.
Yeah.
And when you're undertaking this work, are there any particular artists or photographers that have inspired you? I mean, maybe in the early years you'd look back at some of the
Yeah.
great photojournalists from Magnum or Life magazine, and then obviously there's a number in the sports world.
Yeah.
But given the work you're doing now, perhaps your inspirations are different.
Yeah. I think that early on in the Academy of Art program, I was exposed to the Starn brothers and
Mm.
then also Michael Kenna. Neither one of these
Hmm.
artists I had even known before enrolling in the classes. So I think seeing their work was that little light bulb going off in my head
Mm.
that photography can be, more than just a simple representation of something.
Mm.
I think in my early years I really loved Henri Cartier-Bresson, and that decisive moment was always the thing that drove me. And then when I was exposed to these other artists, I don't think their work is at all about the decisive moment. It's
Mm.
very much time, extended time or extrusive time, and
Hmm.
very tactile elements in it. And those are two things that really appealed to me.
Mm. And perhaps we could talk a little more now about the work you're doing today. Um, you're depicting power stations in your current thesis project. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm very conscious that you're tuning into the effect that they have on the world, both in terms of generating the power that we use every day,
Yeah.
but also perhaps some of the negative effects that they have on the environment and sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I should caveat that for a second. Uh, Not only power stations, but very much all types of industry. Where I live now, the steel industry is a very huge producer of toxins in the environment, and certainly the chemical industry is also something that is very populous around here. Niagara Falls that we referred to
Mm.
was a place that all these factories came to because there was very cheap hydropower available
Mm.
from the falls. So not only the what you would think is the traditional factory or coal burning facility, but also all of these manufacturing facilities like chemicals and steel and even there's an interesting facility in this area that takes a good portion of the trash from Toronto and
Mm.
burns that trash and uses the heat that's generated by burning the trash to create energy, from the steam. So,
Mm.
all of these things are very common sights as I drive along all the highways and roads in
Mm.
our area. I mean, they're just everywhere. So much so that it's ubiquitous. You almost take them
Mm.
for granted. In fact, it's funny. People around here refer. When you're giving someone directions, you refer to these places. Make a
Mm.
left at the two giant smokestacks, and
Yeah.
and in doing so, I think they almost become. We take them for granted, or they become harmless. They're just
Mm.
another icon on the horizon, and really the whole idea behind my project was to kind of take them away from that commonplace and think about them a little bit deeper on how they affect our society and our kids and future generations in what they're doing in terms of releasing toxins and lethal elements into the atmosphere. So that's really kind of the origins and the basis of my project.
And that's very helpful. And I think, as you say, people have just accepted that these power stations and other means of producing energy are there, and they don't question them. They're just part of the environment. As you say, people refer to them as landmarks around which they drive and travel without questioning what they do. I've been very taken with some of the documentary images that you've produced at the sort of front end of the process you use to produce the images that you have this semester. The last one you took I thought was perfect, actually, in terms of the tones, the patterns, the interaction between the different subjects in the frame. And in many ways, I think could be a standalone piece, just showing us what is in front of the lens. You also, of course, apply some very intricate processes to those digital negatives to create the images that you do, which you then show. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about that, and also what you feel that adds to the original.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are many times that I love just the straight documentary versions of these images, and there's almost a feeling on my part, boy, do I really want to apply this process to them. But in terms of my intent with the whole project, I think I'm trying to show people something that isn't being seen. And when we take the documentary or that representational version of the photograph, I think that's giving the viewer something that's already there. So taking it back to that whole idea of breaking down these places that are common, I think by applying those emulsions in different sizes and different ways, and how they kind of deteriorate and degenerate as they interact with each other, I think, or I hope that engages that thought process a little bit more, and kind of has that light bulb go off in the viewer that they say, well, why is he doing this, and why are these things degenerating in this photo? What's he trying to communicate? And that's kind of like the stepping stone for me, where we go beyond that simple representation and move to showing something that hasn't been seen. The title of the show is Transformation of State, and I don't think there's any transformation that really takes place in that straight representation. When we apply the Van Dyke and the cyanotype layers, that's really when that representation gets transformed to something that isn't seen, at least in reality. And I think that really mirrors what's going on with these structures. We see them on the horizon, but we don't see what they're doing to the landscape and to the air and to the environment, other than that kind of harmless looking puff cloud that comes out of them. We really don't see the toxins in the ground and the cancers that this area really is heavily infested with. So I think go ahead.
Sorry, Tom. So you're revealing something which, in a way, the naked eye can't see itself.
Yeah.
Could you, in doing so, as a sort of final question in this section, could you perhaps share a little bit more about the colours? Because you've mentioned the Van Dyke brown, the cyanotype. I see there's being something meaningful in the browns and blues you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that you notice, especially when you get close to these factories, is there's a very distinct sulfuric odor around them, and that odor always reminds me of that sort of sulfur orange color that I think when I nail those Van Dyke browns correctly, they kind of take on that sulfur brown rust color. So that really, for me, represents the lethal toxic end of things. And then, of course, we've got the blue that tends to have some connotations with the sky and purity and water and stuff like that. So those are really the two opposing elements that are kind of battling for dominance, so to speak, in each one of these prints.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Last question. I wonder where you see your photography going. You've clearly, over this last semester and maybe over the last several years, begun to refine the processes that you're using. I wonder if you see yourself developing or using any others as you develop your thesis project further.
Yeah, I think, I feel like this project I'm presenting next semester. So I think in terms of this specific project, I mean, I feel like, it's time to tie a nice bow around it and begin to, work on getting it out into galleries and so forth. But I really love that, I've learned to love this hands-on way of creating images, and I very much see myself down the road, doing platinum and palladium printing. I think there's a whole host of other alternative processes where I can really combine, the fun, and I enjoy shooting digitally, the fun and just pure pleasure I get out of shooting digitally with that quiet, meditative, darkroom experience that I've really come to love. So I see myself down the road doing more stuff like this, but perhaps different processes and different techniques and different subject matter, and trying to combine them all so the concept really ultimately functions well with the method of capture and the printing process. So hopefully.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just to summarise then, Tom, you've taken us on quite a journey, from your first shots really to help you earn some money when you were at college, photojournalism in nature through to sports where you shot for the Bills, into a world where you're taking digital images, creating negatives from those, applying more traditional techniques to develop your photographs, and really revealing something to viewers that they couldn't see with their naked eye. And you've applied a number of different processes to that and produced a very interesting and exciting image set that goes beyond simply what's viewable in the day-to-day. Is there anything else you'd like to say to just summarise before we conclude?
Yeah, no, I just I think it's really wonderful that we have this technology that's available to us, and I think even the online classes, it's funny that I learned alternative processes, which is a very hands-on thing, by taking online classes here. So, I think in summary, I think it's a really exciting world that we have available to us as we move forward in the medium, because we're able to share things online that, gosh, if I had to learn an alternative process 15 or 20 years ago, I probably would have had to, take a workshop somewhere or whatever. And, now really through these classes, I've been able to learn this. So I kind of, in my last semester here, leave the Academy of Art feeling pretty excited about the future of not only my own work, but about the medium as a whole. So,
well, that's a fantastic tribute to you and the school, and thanks for sharing that today. If you could perhaps just send me the link to this, I mean, I don't see any reason why I couldn't just post it and people could listen to what we said.
Sounds good.
Okay.